Welcome, everyone, to our regular Faroese news report.
It's good to be here. We've got quite a bit to cover today, quite a range of topics coming out of the Faroes.
That's right. We'll start with the latest news headlines first, just the headlines for now, and then move into some of the opinion and commentary pieces that have been published recently.
Okay, so for the news section, we'll be looking at
The Fjord and Elding Whale Watching Partnership.
Føroya Banki's updated Moody's credit rating.
An update on Paul Watson being denied asylum in France.
The submission of an abortion law proposal to the Lichting.
And related to that, resignations from the Union Party over their stance on abortion.
Then for the opinion and commentary section, we have
Arguments for updating the Faroese abortion law, specifically from Liljan Way.
a critique of the parliamentary procedure around the abortion debate from Bill Justinosen.
A parliamentary appeal against liberalized abortion by Elspeth Mercedes Gunnleidsdottir.
A piece titled The Tide is Turning by Astrid Breckman.
A critique focused on gender quotas in the Faroese equality debate from Hans Marius E. Hugneson.
And finally, a look at safeguarding Faroese peace and security through a university profile on Peter Freer.
All right, let's dive into the news details then. First up, this partnership between Fjord and Elding Whale Watching. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it really is. So Fjord, the design company based in Fjord, they've signed a new cooperation agreement with Elding Whale Watching, which is a pretty well-established Icelandic tourism firm.
Okay, so what does this partnership actually mean in practice?
Well, it means that Faroese design products, the ones made by Fjord, they're now going to be sold in shops over in Iceland. Specifically, Reykjavik and Akureyri.
That's quite a step. How did this connection even happen?
It's actually a great story, kind of accidental. The owners of Elding were just visiting the Faroes, apparently popped into the Fjord shop in Fjord.
Just as tourists.
Seems like it. And they were just really taken with the products, the ones created by Sofia Nan. They were impressed.
Huh. So it wasn't some big corporate strategy, just liking the product?
Pretty much. And it took off quickly. Initially, it was the Faroese-themed items selling well in Iceland.
Yeah.
But then Elding actually commissioned Fjord to design a whole new line based on Icelandic motifs.
Really? Like what?
Things like Geysir, Hallgrímskirkja Church, Kirkjufell Mountain, iconic Icelandic landmarks. So Fjord's essentially become a design exporter for the region now.
That's impressive growth.
Yeah.
And didn't Fjord win some awards recently?
They did, yeah. Entrepreneur of the Year for 2024 and Faroe's Best Brand for 2025. So this partnership definitely fits with their rising profile.
Okay, good news for Faroese design then. Let's shift quite dramatically to finance. Føroya Banki and Moody's.
Right. The credit rating agency Moody's has updated its rating for Føroya Banki.
And the verdict?
Overall, it's still reported as good. They've got an A2 rating, which is solid. But, and this is the key part, there are negative outlooks attached.
Negative outlooks. And wasn't there a specific rating change too?
Yes, exactly. The long-term issuer rating was changed, downgraded slightly from A1 to A2. Other areas, though, stayed the same as the last rating back in October.
So a specific downgrade, but the overall rating is still A2. Why the drop in that one area?
Well, the bank's CEO, Turi A.F. Arge, addressed this. She stated the change in the long-term issuer rating isn't really about performance risk. It's more technical. It's mainly because of a change to capital composition.
Capital composition, what does that mean in simple terms?
It means they have higher equity now, more of their own capital, and less external financing, less debt, basically.
Okay. Usually, wouldn't more equity and less debt be seen as safer?
You'd think so. But apparently, Moody's specific methodology for that particular rating scores it lower if there's less leverage, less external financing. So it's a bit counterintuitive. They're being marked down slightly because they're well capitalized in that way.
Huh. A quirk of the rating formula, then. What about the general negative outlook on the A2 rating?
According to the bank, that's linked to a specific trend. Loans to some weaker single business customers, both in the Faroes and Greenland. It's not, they emphasize, a widespread issue across their whole loan portfolio. Just a few specific, larger loans causing that outlook.
Got it. So localized concerns, not systemic ones. Okay, let's move from finance to international legal matters involving the Faroes. Well, tangentially. Paul Watson.
Yes, the whale activist Paul Watson. News came out that France has officially refused to grant him political asylum.
He's been seeking asylum for a while, hasn't he? Due to fears of extradition.
That's right. He's a dual U.S. and Canadian citizen, and he fears being extradited to Japan. There's an arrest warrant out for him there related to events back in 2010.
What were the allegations again?
Allegedly damaging a Japanese whaling vessel and obstructing their work during an anti-whaling campaign.
And the French authorities didn't buy his argument for asylum.
No. The French body, OFPRA, they decided his fears of persecution or unfair treatment in Japan were unfounded in their assessment.
This comes after he was actually detained elsewhere recently, didn't it?
It does. He was arrested in Greenland just last July and held for over 4 months. But then, back in December, the Danish Ministry of Justice decided not to extradite him to Japan.
So Denmark said no to extradition, but France won't grant asylum. What's his status now? Is the Japanese warrant still active?
Well, Interpol apparently removed the red notice on him, which makes international travel a bit less immediately risky, perhaps.
Yeah.
But his lawyer maintains the underlying Japanese warrant is still there, so he still feels at risk.
A complex and ongoing situation for him then. Okay, let's turn to domestic Faroes politics now, and this is a big one. The abortion law proposal.
Yes, this is definitely stirring things up. 4 members of the Lagting, the Faroes Parliament, have formally submitted a proposal to reform the existing abortion law, which dates all the way back to 1956.
4 members from different parties.
Mostly from the governing coalition, actually. 3 are from the coalition parties, and 1 is from the opposition. The names are Ingelin Didriksen Strum, Herver Pulsdottir, Carlet Hergiersen, and Aedes Hartmann Niklasen.
And what's the stated aim of this proposal? What are they trying to achieve?
They've listed several goals.
Mm-hmm.
Ensuring all women are equal under the law is one. Modernizing that very old 1956 legislation. Making sure procedures are done safely in hospitals. And, interestingly, they also state a goal of reducing abortion rates through better professional counseling and prevention efforts.
Okay, so reform, safety, and prevention. This must be causing some political wave, especially with members from different sides backing it.
Absolutely. It's created immediate tension, particularly within the opposition Union Party, Sambandsflokkurin. Aedes Hartmann Niklasen is one of their MPs, and she's one of the proposers.
So how did her party leadership react?
Well, the party chairman, Bardarush Stig Nielsen, apparently tried to convince her to withdraw her name from the proposal, but he wasn't successful.
Did the party force her or discipline her?
No. Nielsen confirmed that the Union Party allows a freedom of vote on ethical matters like this, so members can vote their conscience.
But it still caused friction, obviously. What do the party's voters think? Is there any polling on this?
There is, actually. A recent Spire.fol, published in .fo and Socialuren, indicated that 52% of the Union Party's own voters actually support legal abortion up to 12 weeks.
Wow, over half. So the MP proposing it is actually aligned with a majority of her party's base on this issue.
Seems that way. But despite that voter support, the internal party conflict is very real. We've already seen resignations over it.
Resignations? Who?
A former MP, Edva Jacobsen, and a former candidate, Aaron Vest, both announced they're leaving the Union Party specifically in protest because one of the party's MPs is supporting this proposal for, as they see it, free abortion.
So a real split there between voter opinion, party procedure on ethical votes, and the strong feelings of some members. Okay, that sets the stage perfectly for the next section, the opinions and commentary surrounding this debate.
Exactly. And we have pieces reflecting the different sides quite strongly. Let's start with the argument for reform, specifically from Lil Junwei, who's an MP for Chodaveldi.
How does she frame her argument?
Fundamentally, she says it's about equality. She argues the core disagreement really boils down to your starting point. Are you centering the woman carrying the fetus or the fetus being carried?
And her position.
Her position starts with the woman.
Right.
She mentions the 26,401 women in the Faroes and stresses that they must have the right to decide about their own bodies and their own lives. Full stop.
Does she comment on the current law?
Yes, quite pointedly. She describes the current system, based on the 1956 law, as forcing women to essentially ask doctors for grace. She uses the Faroes word nagi. She calls this unreasonable and undignified.
Strong words. Okay, now turning to the arguments against the reform or critical of the process. Bill Justinossen seems quite exercised about the procedure.
He is. He uses very strong language, calling the proposal a coup attempt and an abuse of the parliament.
A coup attempt? Why such strong language? What's his reasoning?
His main point is about the timing. He argues the proposers are deliberately using a very narrow window of opportunity, a temporary majority that only exists because another MP, Solvit Nolso, recently resigned. He questions if pushing it through now is, well, democratically legitimate for such a big change.
So it's a procedural criticism as much as anything.
Partly, but he also criticizes the governing coalition more broadly. He points out this abortion reform wasn't in their coalition agreement, their governing plan. And he accuses them of focusing on this controversial issue while, in his view, neglecting promises on the economy, a shorter work week, housing, and the crucial Suroy Tunnel project.
So it's about priorities, too.
Yes. And he frames it morally as well, arguing the move shows a lack of tolerance and humanity and violates what he sees as the Faroes' Christian cultural tradition of valuing life.
Okay, a multi-layered critique there. What about Elspeth Mercedes Gunlig's daughter's appeal?
Hers is less about procedure and more a direct plea to her colleagues in the Ligting. She urges them to think very, very carefully about this vote.
How so?
She emphasizes that this issue is fundamentally different from typical political disputes. Debates about tunnels or pensions. This, she says, concerns life itself and deserves a different level of consideration.
A call for deeper reflection, then. And Astrid Breckman, her piece is titled, "The Tide is Turning. What's her angle?"
She brings up the slippery slope argument. She warns that the proposed 12-week limit might not be the final step. She points to Denmark moving to 18 weeks and Iceland moving to 22 weeks, suggesting this could be just the beginning.
A common argument in these debates. Does she mention anything else?
Yes, she makes a point about language. She criticizes politicians for using the foreign word abort instead of what she says is the more direct Faroese word tining, which translates roughly to destruction. She believes abort is used to soften the reality of the act.
Interesting linguistic point. And her prediction about the tide turning.
She predicts that political support will shift away from parties that back this abortion reform measure. A political warning, essentially.
Okay. And there was one more piece mentioned in the summary against reform.
Yes, it's framed quite differently. It's written as a letter from the perspective of an unborn child.
Right. What's the message there?
It's an emotional appeal. The child asks its mother and the politicians why it can't have the same chance to live, grow up, maybe become a politician or doctor itself. It asks for its wishes to be respected in the decision-making.
A very different kind of argument using a literary approach. Okay, let's shift gears again. There was also commentary on a different social issue, gender quotas.
That's right. This piece is by Hans Marius E. Hegnesson, and he's highly critical of the current equality debate in the Faroes.
What's his main criticism?
He argues it's become completely one-sided, focusing only on women's rights and ignoring the rights and perspectives of men. He goes so far as to call the official Equality Commission a joke.
A joke? Why?
He claims it's not working for true equality, Javnsko, but only for what he calls Saratindi's special rights, presumably for women. He even suggests the official term should be changed to reflect this focus on special rights.
That's a strong claim. Does he elaborate on gender quotas specifically?
Yes, he calls gender quotas sexist and directly compares them to racism. He argues they lead to discrimination, specifically citing discrimination against white men, and mentions the BBC in relation to this point.
Okay, so a very strong opposition to quotas. Does he propose an alternative focus for society?
He does. He suggests the primary national focus should shift away from careers and towards encouraging family life and achieving a birth surplus Lopi.
And how would he encourage that?
His specific suggestion is to abolish income tax obligations for women who have 4 or more children. He sees that as a good starting point to prioritize family formation.
A provocative proposal indeed. All right, for our final segment, we move away from political and social commentary to academia, specifically a profile on a new dean at the University of the Faroe Islands.
Yes, Peter Freer. He's the new dean of the Faculty of Natural Sciences at Froskaparsetri, the university. He moved from Australia about 6 months ago.
And the profile highlighted something specific about his experience moving to the Faroes.
It really did. He spoke about the profound sense of peace and security he feels in the Faroes. It clearly made a huge impression on him.
Why was it so striking for him?
Because of the contrast with his previous job. He was a professor at Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. And he reported, quite starkly, that violence was a major issue there. Students frequently assaulted, people killed. He mentioned sometimes losing one student to violence every 2 months.
Wow. That really puts the Faroes environment in perspective. A student killed every 2 months.
Yeah, it's a shocking comparison. It really underscores the relative safety in the Faroes he's experiencing.
Absolutely. Beyond the safety aspect, what were his thoughts on the university itself?
He described it as small, young, and still very much developing. He sees advantages in the small size, like easy access to the leadership. But he also acknowledged the downsides, limited resources, and a feeling of constant change or flux.
Does he have specific goals as dean?
Yes, several. He wants to make sure all faculty are actively involved in research, not just teaching. He aims to attract more students, both local Faroe students and international ones. And a key goal is developing master's programs so students can complete their entire higher education journey without having to leave the Faroes.
Makes sense, building local capacity. Did he identify any major challenges to achieving these goals?
One big one he flagged was language and integration. He noted that nearly a third of the researchers in his faculty are foreign.
A third. That's quite high.
It is. And he worries that because Faroese is the common language spoken among staff in day-to-day interactions, there's a real risk these foreign researchers might not integrate well. If they feel excluded or struggle with the language barrier long-term, he fears high staff turnover, which would obviously hinder research and development.
That's a really practical challenge for an internationally focused university in a small linguistic community. It touches on how global trends meet local realities.
It really does, and it's fascinating, isn't it? We've covered sources talking about this deep sense of peace and security, highlighted by someone coming from a very different environment. Yet at the same time, we're seeing sources describing this intense political and social upheaval over fundamental values like the abortion law.
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it, when that social consensus, the bedrock of a society, faces such a fundamental challenge, can that external perception of peace and stability really truly last unchanged? Something to think about.
That wraps up our report on the recent news and commentary from the Faroese sources we reviewed.
Like and subscribe to PalsFundamentals for more content like this. Sources linked below.
Sources